Any word?
She ghosted him.
I bet she hasn't even seen your text.
She does travel a lot for work.
Go to her.
I'm going to London. See, you get it. It's a grand romantic gesture.
Yeah, that is amazing, mate. 5,000 miles to surprise a girl who you've only met once, especially if she's the one who ghosted you.
No, she didn't ghost me. She just doesn't have an international calling plan.
Oh, right.
Bad news, bro.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, I'm Brian Brushwood, but more importantly, what was that, Bryce?
So that was a trailer for Apple TV's upcoming action film, Ghosted. It didn't seem like an action film, did it?
Well, I mean, I think being ghosted is the literal definition of the opposite of getting some action.
That's right.
So that's Chris Evans and Anna de Armas. They hook up and he tries to meet up with her after their date, and he goes to England to go see I bet it's her international calling plan. It turns out she's a spy for the CIA. And then it turns into one of those movies. But that's coming to Apple TV April 21st. Couple of big names.
Bold move.
Who wants to wait till April 21st for something great to come? Let's welcome Fraser Cain to the show right now.
Hey, I'm back.
Universe Today.
It's good to have you back.
Hey, Fraser, has anything interesting been happening in the universe
Today? Yeah, it's been James Webb Space Telescope has just been this gift that it keeps on giving. But we waited 20 years for this thing to launch and about $10 billion. So now it's delivering.
I know we got to talk about TV at some point, but real quick, am I right in hearing that like a bunch of micrometeorites are pecking the bejesus out of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's been hit now, I think about 10 times. And this was expected, but one of them was much more significant than anyone was expecting. And it took such a big ding out of the mirror that it hit. They've actually changed the way the James Webb Space Telescope operates. So before, they would look in any direction they wanted. Sometimes they'd look up orbit, other times they'd look down orbit. And based on that impact, they're now trying to organize all of their observations so that they're always looking away from the direction that Webb is orbiting around the sun. And so if you look up orbit, then you get the addition of Webb's velocity around the sun, which is about 30 kilometers a second, added to the velocity of the objects. And if you turn the other way, then you get to subtract that 30 kilometers an hour from the velocity of the object. And so they'll do less damage. So it was a powerful life lesson.
Yeah. Always be careful where you point your telescope.
Yeah. But it is,
Quit
within
looking at
the
those
parameters.
meteors that are hitting you in the eyes.
Yeah, look the other way. But it's within the parameters of what they were expecting, except for that one. That was surprisingly big.
They just had a random one. Yeah.
Yeah, but the lifetime has been extended and extended. So the launch from the European Space Agency's kick stage was so precise that instead of the 10 years they were planning, it looks like they're going to get 20 to 25 years of life out of JWST. So that's amazing.
I just realized, Tom, that I was in the middle of thinking like, oh no, I opened up this thread of discussion, but then I realized JWST is the literal definition of watching what you want, when you want, whenever you want.
Well, except now you can't go up orbit anymore.
Well, I mean, you just in general, stop looking at the meteorites in your eyes. Yeah.
Just wait 6 months.
All right. Well, let's get to some stuff that's happening down here on Earth, but also about space with the primary target. All right, so you may have heard the news. Star Trek Discovery's 5th season has been pushed off to 2024. We're not going to get Discovery this year. Paramount also announced it will be its final season. That will mean it will have lasted 7 years, just like TNG, DS9, and Voyager, but only 5 seasons because there were a couple of years, including this one, where they didn't air a season. But 5 seasons is still one more than Enterprise. It also pioneered Star Trek as the flagship property for streaming, premiering on the fledgling CBS All Access, which is now called Paramount Plus. Star Trek Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds generally get better reviews. Picard is sort of in a nostalgia category of its own, as is Prodigy, which is animated and aimed mostly towards kids. But Discovery leaving will be a turning point in Star Trek. You could sort of group it into eras if you want. There's the original series era, there's the original movies era, then there's the indie network era, that's TNG, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise, maybe the Abrams movie era in between there, and then the streaming era, which started with Star Trek Discovery and all the rest that followed. Now, Paramount has a Discovery spinoff in the works called Section 31 that is supposed to star Michelle Yeoh. That has been in the works since 2019. Haven't heard a lot about it. There's still hints out there that maybe they were developing a Starfleet Academy series. Maybe that one's still underway. That's bolstered by the fact that Lieutenant Tilly's character left Discovery in season 4 to go teach. But Discovery was the main show. It was the heir of the original series and The Next Generation. So, Brian, let's talk about where we would like to see Star Trek as a franchise go next.
You know what? Star Trek strikes me personally as in a similar spot as the MCU, where the MCU has started with boots on the ground, concrete and fisticuffs, Captain America, Iron Man, whatever, and built up so far that it's in this rubbery world, and we've talked about this in Spoilerin time, where anything's possible. And I feel like Star Trek has kind of ascended to similar territory. Me as a fan, a lifelong fan, I would really love to see a grittier, boots on the ground version of the Enterprise era, of the early days of space travel. But that's just me, and I'm just wishing on a cloud, or just nothing but a Lower Decks cinematic universe. That's all I want.
Yeah.
Fraser, what about you?
I really like Discovery, and it's funny, like when you watch Discovery, and like I know a lot of people whine about its wokeness. And in fact, I was remarking to my wife, we were watching the show, and I'm like, there isn't a single character on this show who is a straight white male who isn't an alien. Like, not a one. And that feels revolutionary. Like, watching that I'm sure it's equivalent to people watching the original Star Trek back in the 60s, and all of the black communications officer, female communications officer, a Russian helmsman, etc. And I think it's important. And it's been hit or miss for me, but I found the last season great. We were even, we remark on it when Discovery is great. My wife and I am like, this is a really good season. So I've been really enjoying it, and I think it's important. I think it's too bad that they're bringing it to a close. I mean, what you're looking for, Brian, with Strange New Worlds, they nailed it. Like, that's
what
a
I
good
hear.
show.
I hear it is what I want, and I should go back there.
It is exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it is what the people want, but I don't think it's being as brave in telling stories and doing what Gene Roddenberry always kind of wanted, which was to say, well, what is the best? What will we become in the future? What are the issues that we're dealing with today? What do those look like if they get resolved in the future? And we can face bigger problems like aliens and things.
If I could push back on that a little bit, I think what made Star Trek, the original series, so wonderful is that it took some fairly obvious borders and pushed them. And then if that's your goal, is to keep on pushing borders of social commentary and so on, like now we're at the point where we're at the edge of the Mandelbrot fractal, where it's like, we're almost inventing new barriers to push at this point. So it's like, part of me wants to see some excuse to pull back and get back to, simple barriers.
Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, that's what I hear. That's what I hear.
Worlds is like, it's just like somebody punching you in the head with no grace. And Discovery
somebody punching you in the head with no grace. That's so good.
Yeah.
You want gritty?
Just bludgeoning you with Star Trek nostalgia. But I think Star Trek shouldn't be about nostalgia, exactly what you said, right? That Mandelbrot. It should be about continuing to make you feel a little uncomfortable about what the future is.
Well, and now we encounter the uncomfortable world of like shareholders and property IP owners and all that stuff. And it's like at some point, it's like, well, you should do something else. And it's like, but if you do something else, are we going to get upset that it's not Star Trek? Like I'm hungry for the energy of Star Trek, but I'm not necessarily married to the words Star Trek.
I think one of the issues with Discovery is it was all over the place. It started as one concept, then adjusted to a second concept, then jumped far into the future into a third concept. And so it had some pretty strong characters and along the way, some great stories, in my opinion, but it was inconsistent. It never had its reason for being stay the same the way, Voyager wanted to get home. Deep Space Nine was trying to guard the frontier. Next Generation was doing what the Enterprise had done in the original series, going boldly where no one had gone before, and exploration. So you're getting the going boldly in Strange New Worlds. You're getting some fun new perspectives in Lower Decks, but I want the next Voyager DS9. I want the next, all right, put Star Trek's universe somewhere they haven't been before. Put them somewhere unexpected. Let them face new challenges. My idea had always been throw them far into the future. They tried that with Discovery, so I don't know if you can get away with that one again. And that's where I start to run short to be like, well, I don't know what that idea ends up being.
I thought that idea was great, them going that far into the future, because it made them, unfamiliar with everything around them and how all this technology works. But the problem is that if you're going to try and inject 1,000-year future technology into every aspect of human society, there's some issues that you're going to have to work through in your mind.
I wonder if another way they could go is send it to another galaxy. Just do the original series exploration thing by removing it entirely from the Star Trek history. Somebody gets flung somewhere else and they've just got to stay there and make their way. There's no coming back home.
But this is the Star Wars problem too, right? Like they're just treading and
MCU
retreading.
Problem, right? Where what we love are those archetypes, those hardcore archetypes that were well represented before, but now all of a sudden we're just so far out there. I could see a version where all of the archetypes from each of these phases, Tom, whether or not they're the actual characters or not, end up in a different galaxy, and their goal is in a Voyager-like way to get back home. But here's a nutty idea. Take all that talent, that energy, that storytelling, and maybe don't use the word Star Trek. But of course, that's the one thing nobody wants to hear.
Yeah.
Well, but then it's not Star Trek, so I'm not sure if I know what you mean.
That's fine. Have you guys watched?
So you're just saying you don't want more Star Trek, you want original things, which is perfectly valid.
I don't know. What I'm saying is I don't know how to solve the problem that they have. And the problem that they have is that they boldly went past tense. And now, I don't know where else there is to go.
You can go italic.
Yeah,
Italic.
I think...
they were already italic, but that's fine.
I'm reading the Revelation Space series by Alistair Reynolds right now, and it's just one of the most mind-blowing reads that I've ever been through. And I can't even imagine what it would be like to turn that into a television show or a series of movies or whatever. And I probably make this point every single time that there is this ocean of amazing science fiction that's been created out there, where the hard work has been done, the story has been figured out, and now it just needs someone with some budget to come along and do a good job of telling the story, like they have with The Expanse or the Queen's Gambit or whatever.
You just caused me to have what I think is a pretty clever idea, which nobody will ever do, which is have something that is a 5-year plan that eventually the story is going to puncture into the Star Trek universe. but you start it as a totally independent IP and you develop it, and then there's some wormhole, whatever, something, and then it becomes part of the canon. But of course,
I kind of love that.
No board of directors wants to hear that. No shareholders want to hear
it's
that.
Too risky. Yeah.
No, they want to feed us member
I love
berries.
the idea of we start with the aliens, and then they come into the Star Trek universe, and we don't realize they're the aliens at first, right?
You know what? Okay, so I wonder if, here's a little nerd talk, like if we were watching the Vulcans, I bet the humans would look the way we look at Ferengi. And I bet the Ferengi would look like straight up, Gollum or something, and maybe that's something you could do is represent, not even admit that it's a different race than humans. Just say, hey, we're representing the story. It reminds me a little bit of something that they did in the book Anathem, but now we're in the weeds. Never mind.
You want to use a story and try to take advantage of the brand awareness of that story, but without taking advantage of the brand awareness. It's like, what's the point? Just tell a new story. We don't have to pay any money.
Well, the pitch is it's do a new story. You pitch it to Paramount. You do a new story and you say, if we make it 5 years, this is where suddenly your promotional opportunities explode because everyone's going to talk about it and it's going to be huge IP crossover territory. But you got to keep the secret until then. So the original pitch has to be good enough to be accepted on its own, and then there's like this bomb waiting to go off. That's the only way I can think of to sell it.
Don't Panic VU in the chat has a great idea about the Borg prequel idea. Like, obviously, there were well-intentioned beings that led to that disaster of the Borg. Like, yeah, dude, give me those stories. That sounds awesome.
Well, I mean, the Orville's kind of flirting
this is the
with
book
that
I'm reading.
story. Yeah.
In Revelation Space, one of the main characters is essentially a Borg. And they're still part of the collective, and they're on one side of the war, and other people on the other side of the war.
Hey, you know what?
And
well,
he's
guess
the good
what?
guy.
You're hosting the show with two Borg. We're humans, but who are enhanced with lenses that cause our vision to be corrected. We are the perfect fusion between technology and humanity.
Yeah, I should probably go for my implants soon too, actually.
Yeah. Resistance is futile.
That's
you
right.
Must become a patron.
Which is why you shouldn't stop yourself from going to patreon.com/Cordkillers. That's where you'll get your own RSS feed. That's where you'll get early access to all of our best parts. That's where you'll get exclusive access to our After Talk segments. And that's where we whisper true secrets to you.
Indeed. Only the collective can hear them, though. So by all means, go become one of them. It's like we said, futile to resist. So just do it. Just stop making excuses. Patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Assimilate.
That's our pitch.
Assimilate.
Right. Yeah, you're kind of crossing. You know what?
Doctor Who fans are also
we can write
welcome.
it into it. Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. Let's talk about how to watch. European regulators are considering rules that would require streaming businesses to pay money toward the building of internet infrastructure. Yeah, let me say that again. European regulators are considering rules that would require streaming businesses, like Netflix, to pay money toward the building of internet infrastructure, the thing built by other companies like telecoms. Newly minted Netflix co-CEO Greg Peters told the Mobile World Congress last week that requiring entertainment companies to subsidize ISPs would have a significant adverse effect on their ability to invest in content and hurt local creative communities. ISPs, on the other hand, said that increased usage of video services like Netflix are putting pressure on them to pay for network upgrades. Brian?
Oh my God, so much coded talk here. Like what they're saying is Europe be all like, regulators be regulating, please build us a thing. And then they turn to Netflix, and Netflix is like, we sort of built our business on this thing being free. So I don't see why you're asking
Not even
us
free.
to build a thing.
No. It's not even free. Netflix has to pay money to access the internet one way or another, either building their own infrastructure, doing peering agreements. Netflix isn't getting a free ride, but that's what the ISPs would like you to think. However, what the ISPs would like is for Netflix to be forced to contribute money to the government that would then redistribute it to the ISP to increase their bandwidth, rather than the ISPs having to make the money themselves.
Right. But significant adverse effect is code for, if you make us do this, goodbye. How about that?
No.
How do you like that?
Netflix is saying, you want us to keep funding things in France? That's not going to happen if you make us pay ISPs money. We're going to deduct that from that budget.
Fraser, you're a socialist. What's up?
I'm a Canadian.
And yet
who wants
you
to live in a
repeat
colony?
yourself.
Closest thing to a European we have on the panel today.
I guess so. I mean, this just feels just normal. Like, it just feels like the telcos have been complaining about having to handle all of this traffic since they arrived on the scene, and with good reason. But like, we pay them money to deliver content traffic to us. Like, that's their job. Like, my ISP's job is to deliver me whatever I choose to download: video games, television shows on Netflix, YouTube videos. And so are they going to go and ask, Steam for money when I want to download
If it gets popular enough, yes.
gigabyte?
Yeah, right.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
That's one of the things that we're actually dealing with, is like, ISPs like it when they're first and become the winners. They don't like it when it's expensive to be the winner, right? And likewise, everybody who plays in the ISP space, whether you're a video game, a movie, a television, whatever, they like to become the winners, but they don't like it when it's like, well, you're kind of number one, and we kind of need you to kick in over here. I don't know
ISPs
what the right
are
answer
also
is.
always horribly afraid of being dumb pipes. Because the margins are low and the potential for growth is low. The idea being that once you've saturated the market with fiber, say, then you can't charge people extra for stuff, right? There's an amount they'll pay for their internet connection, and that's that. So this is always what happens when telcos feel like they're up against that wall. They start sniffing around for other ways to extract money. And sometimes that means getting the government on your side. Comcast tried the same thing about 10 years ago in the United States with Netflix, the exact situation where they were saying, hey, you're sending all this video into our networks and it's flooding our networks and we can't handle it. You need to pay us to reach our customers. In that case, there was less about getting the government on their side, although they did make noises about that. But they were talking about canceling peering arrangements and violating social norms. Whereas this, it's more about going straight to the European government and saying, you need to help us. Because if you use the word infrastructure, that goes down better in government circles.
Yeah, no, I think that's a phenomenally bad idea, because if I'm Netflix in that situation, my answer is, is the problem that we have too much high quality 4K streams? Congrats, we've solved it. 720p is the highest number.
I mean, what makes life best for us as consumers, I think is a good question you should ask. Because, if politicians, internet service providers, and streaming providers are all having an argument, how do I pick sides with those three
what's in
groups?
it for us? That's a very good
Which
question.
one do I want to back?
Because what you want is the government to make it easy for ISPs to provide service to you. But ISPs don't want that either, because then they will get competitors. And that's not part of this conversation. So I'm not sure there's a side that wins for us other than not to play.
Well, there are some echoes of like 10 years ago when we were all worried about like, well, it's not like there are more than one ways to get internet. And now in 2023, it's like it's a viable option to use your cell phone provider for your primary internet service, or satellites in the sky, or fiber, or DSL. Remember that? Oh yeah, but my point is, there's the looming threat of kind of a universal way to access all of this stuff. And as a result, like when you say provide infrastructure, if I were working at Netflix and I were charged with the question, how would we provide infrastructure? I would shrug and say, in 5 years, it's all going to be wireless. It's all going to be satellites.
Yeah.
I don't understand the question.
It's all going to be OneWeb and Starlink and whoever else comes along, because there's multiples in the space. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
in that regard, it makes sense tactically for Netflix to push back pretty hard against this.
Oh, it absolutely makes sense. I totally understand what the ISPs are doing. I might do it if I were them. I totally understand why Netflix doesn't want to pay. I would do it if I were them too. Yeah.
And I totally understand politicians wanting to get more votes, and whichever way is going to get the most money going towards
we
them.
can do. Not vote for them.
Or just not vote.
Sure.
I'm not going to vote
too.
for any French politicians this season.
I know. Yeah. This European
Just say
Cordkillers
no.
listeners, tell
Take
us
it from
which MEPs
these
you
three
won't be
North
voting
Americans, these four North Americans. Don't vote for in the France elections.
Yeah.
Not this season.
Yeah.
Do it next season when the regulations
Yeah.
change. Wait another 12
for.
months.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
It's all about location.
Under surveillance.
Ayaz Akhtar is back to keep us updated with what's coming to the streaming services this month. Take it away, Ayaz.
What's up, Cordkillers? Ayaz here. Let's take a look at what's new to streaming in March. You probably don't know it because there's little to no advertising about this, but a little show called The Mandalorian is back on Disney Plus with new episodes every Wednesday. Netflix has a new comedy special by Chris Rock. You may have heard a little bit about it. It's called Chris Rock Selective Outrage, and it's out right now. Everybody's favorite stalker is back again. You, Season 4, Part 2, starts streaming on Netflix on March 9th. March 12th is the day we get the season finale of The Last of Us. You can stream that on HBO Max. On the 17th of March, catch Bono and the Edge, a sort of homecoming with David Letterman on Disney+. I don't understand how U2, David Letterman, and Disney all make sense together, but it's happening. Love is Blind Season 4 starts streaming on Netflix on the 24th. New episodes arrive weekly. March 24th is also the day you can watch Reggie on Prime Video. This is a documentary about Mr. October himself, Reggie Jackson. HBO Max has the Season 4 premiere of Succession on the 26th. This will be the series' final season, so enjoy it while you can. And saving the last for last, the movie that changed all of our lives has a sequel coming. That's right, Murder Mystery 2, starring Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler, hits Netflix on the 31st. Want to know more? Watch this show, Cordkillers.
Thank you, Ayaz. Saving the last for last. As he mentioned, Saturday evening, Netflix streamed Chris Rock's comedy special live from Baltimore. It was the first time that Rock had talked about Will Smith slapping him on stage at the Oscars last year. The show also included a pre-show and post-show analyzing Chris Rock's performance. Did you watch? And if you didn't, did you hear people talking about it, Brian?
Oh my God, I totally watched it. I tuned in maybe 20 minutes before the show, and I was figuring, like, okay, look, this is where everybody chimes in, gives support to Chris Rock. This is pretty much the Super Bowl of comedy specials, first time live transmitted all around the world on Netflix or whatever. And I'm like, oh my, Jerry Seinfeld. Oh my, Sarah Silverman. Oh my. And at some point, I just hit fatigue of all of the support that was shown going into it. I did love the fact that Dana Carvey and David Spade very slyly put in, like, anyway, we have a podcast. It's called Fly on a Wall. That's not a promo. Anyway, I was fascinated by the pre and post show parts of the whole thing. Did you watch it live, either of you guys?
I didn't watch it at all.
So did you hear people talking about it?
I did not.
I heard myself talk about it.
I was going to say,
lot.
we watched it. I was surprised a little bit that Eileen, my wife, brought it up to me before I brought it up to her. So I'm like, oh, okay. So it's on her mind. It's not just because I cover Cordkillers that I'm knowing about this. Watched it. Thought it was good. I like Chris Rock anyway. I like that he messed up the main joke, and said, screwed up that joke, and then retold it. It was definitely live. Thought the pre and the post show were interesting. Like you said, it was interesting to see the number of people willing to say, yes, I will support Chris Rock in this venture. Some of them are better than others. Bill Maher felt like he was being forced to read his for some weird reason. But what struck me was how little anyone else seemed to be mentioning it. It did not seem to make the waves that I think Netflix would have liked it to make.
That's interesting, because I don't think until you said those words right now, I had really thought about that. But I think you're right. Like, it was a fairly minor story on my front page of headlines. Bryce, did you happen to watch this live?
I just so happened to log into Netflix like right before it started, so I caught a few minutes of a pre-show act that I didn't really like, and then I when I went back to watch live, I jumped back to the beginning of it because it's on demand. But I didn't make it more than a few minutes. I was waiting for him to tell some jokes, but he just kept saying, "Oh, cancel culture," and then I turned off. So.
That's interesting, because I thought he gave a and this is something I'm going to have to process a little bit more. On the spectrum of volatility and talent, let's put Dave Chappelle all the way out on the fringes, where it's like he'll go way out there, and it's like, well, I get it, But whereas Chris Rock is much more playing the everyman, and he relied on some tried and true, relatable stuff. It was fascinating watching it live. I did notice my dumb production brain kicked in, and I noticed how often he was very deliberately looking at various places off screen, and how very carefully placed the teleprompters were to remind him of where he was at in the script and stuff. But in terms of, as a matter of fact, one of my favorite moments was in the after show. JB Smoove is talking, and there begins to become some static, and I'm looking at a little dimple on his chest, and I realize he's got a microphone on. And then I look at
said, somebody
lapel.
give him a stick mic. And like,
right. So you and I had the same thing. So it's like he had two mics on him, and it was going out, and I was like, and I leaned over to Bonnie, and I said, get ready for the room mic. And then at that moment, a stick mic showed up, and it was amazing.
Yeah. So Fraser, are you at all interested in going and watching this, because it is now available on demand? You can re-experience the whole thing.
No, I'm just not that into stand-up comedy.
Okay, yeah,
yeah, and my wife is just not that into stand-up comedy either, and so between the two of us, neither of us is going to inflict this upon the other, and so no, we don't watch any stand-up comedy at all.
They're not gonna get you to watch this, right? No matter, because it's a stand-up comedy thing. That's fair. I also note that Chris Rock is my age, which means he's only a couple of years older than Brian, which means
he definitely addressed issues that hit that 45 to 50 demographic.
Gen X loved this.
As a matter of fact, he maybe said the words 45 to 50 a lot in terms of his relationships and everything.
Yeah. And I think he was speaking specifically to that age group several times, and not caring if people younger were going to be upset by what he said, or even not even upset, but like Bryce, like, cancel culture. I'm not interested. See you later. Like it felt like it was demographically targeted.
Yeah. Also, I mean, everybody was tuning in for one thing, and that was the last 10 minutes of the episode. That was the
thing at the end about Will Smith, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and he...
was that good? Was there anything new in there?
Well, unfortunately, because he had been working out the material for the past year, you could look online and figure out what material he was working on, and those jokes showed up, and they landed fine. But basically, in terms of if you're one who wants to munch popcorn and look at a battle of superstars, he did an incredible thing insofar as in the middle of the world's first Netflix global comedy special, I think successfully positioned himself as the lower status person in describing that whole thing, which is a hard thing to do.
Yeah. All right. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania screenwriter Jeff Loveness was surprised by the raking over the coal that critics gave his film, at least the film he helped write. He told the Daily Beast, "I was in a pretty low spot. Those were not good reviews." And I was like, what the heck? I'm really proud of what I wrote for Jonathan and Michelle. I thought that was good stuff. And so I was just despondent and I was really sad about it. He then made the questionable choice, in my opinion, of attending a public screening, but it worked. He listened as people in the audience laughed along at many of the jokes he had added to the script. And he said, "I'm like, God damn, the reviews are wrong. I'm pretty happy with it overall. And I think I learned how to take a punch this week. And now that I learned that it's not too bad, I can just get on with making things." Loveness previously won an Emmy for the Rick and Morty episode, Vat of Acid episode. So it's not like this was his first go round. But I thought there was an interesting interview that he gave where he's like, oh, maybe I just shouldn't read the reviews.
Fraser, I perceive this as not an indictment of the writing of the show. I still haven't seen it, but more of the kind of nexus that the MCU finds itself at, where it's trying to define a new era, but it's not entirely clear what that is.
Well, once again, as always, it comes back to just tell good stories. And I think like they're trying to top the Avengers, but when you really like think about what is the Avengers, right? It was just a ragtag collection of superheroes in the Marvel universe. It was the good storytelling that brought it together and raised their awareness, and everyone really liked them as characters. Like Hawkeye, really? Like that's, tier 1 content. I mean,
we're back
Spider-Man.
to the Mandelbrot fractal, right? We're back at the edges. The same thing we were talking about with Star Trek.
So you can pick up any character in the lineup. You can tell, either dig into the comic books to find great stories that were told and tell those stories on the screen. And much of the heavy lifting has already been done for you at this point. I haven't watched the movie either. I'm a patient MCUer at this point. So I'm on Disney Plus. I just wait till they're on Disney Plus and then I watch them. So I just watched the new Black Panther movie. That's how I roll. And you know what? I'm not going to say anything else that 12-year-old Fraser will somehow just hate me into the future.
I feel for Jeff Loveness. A shout out to Jeff Loveness. You work hard. People laughed at your film. Yeah. You should feel good about it.
Don't read the comments.
Yeah.
Have we all learned this?
Apple released a teaser for Silo, a series based on the Silo series by Hugh Howey, which started with the book Wool. You may know the name Wool more than you might know Silo series. It is about the last 10,000 people on Earth living underground. They've lived underground so long, they're not sure why they're there in the first place, but it's clear that if they go outside, they will die. Or is it? Silo arrives on Apple TV Plus May 5th.
So in my experience, Tom, I think we talked about this last week, Apple TV Plus tends to have like one home run per year. Do you feel like this is it? Question mark?
It's got a shot. This is akin to me, The Last of Us becoming a TV show. The Silo series is fantastic. I love it. And so I am nervous as you were about The Last of Us, about how this is going to turn out. The trailer doesn't push me one way or another. There's nothing in there that made me nervous, but there was nothing in there that clinched it for me. Fraser, did you read the Silo series?
No. They're good?
Yeah, they're fantastic. Hugh Howey did a wonderful job with them. So worth reading the books for sure. Although with the series coming, some of you may want to see the series before you read the books.
Yeah, this is just perfect. This is textbook. Take a really good book and turn it into a TV show.
It's simple,
Rinse,
people.
repeat.
What's
it's
up,
simple.
Hollywood? Why can't you all do it? Just take
Follow
a
our
good
simple
thing and make
three-step
another good
plan.
thing.
But is there a way the silo could make its way into the Star Trek universe? Maybe through a wormhole somehow?
5 years later, maybe. The First Shadow is a prequel to Stranger Things that will hit London's Phoenix Theatre in the West End later this year. If you're not familiar, that means it's a stage play. The play follows Hopper and Joyce in 1959 and was written by Stranger Things show writer Kate Treffry.
I love everything about this. I love
too.
a thing that doesn't belong in one place being in another place. I love everything being shifted in time and place. Yes to all of it.
Yeah, I would watch it if I lived in London.
Let's all go to London together and see it. Come on.
I mean, that's the downside, right? Like on the upside, yeah, you're making a play, you're breaking all the rules. This is crazy. Also, downside, nobody can watch it. So
they film it.
People that live in London can.
They film it.
Film
They
it,
film it.
put it on. Yeah, and maybe like film it, but like with different camera scenes and like have special effects.
That's what they did with Oh Hello, which was a Broadway show. You could tell that they recorded a live performance of it and supplemented it with a few pickups after the fact with some, unique angles that you can't get in a live stream. Do that with this.
Also, the two of you are dangerously close to describing a little thing I call a movie.
That's my point.
Someone should tell Netflix.
Yeah, if you're going to broadcast, if you're going to film and edit a stage play, then go all the way and make a movie.
Yeah.
Well, Fraser, I know you have to get out of here, but we have a feature called Eyes On where we talk about what we've been watching. Before you go, is there anything you've been watching lately you want to tell folks about?
I mean, I'm watching all the standard stuff. So I'm watching The Last of Us, and I've started watching The Mandalorian. Meh. We're watching. My wife and I were watching Animal Kingdom, which I had never watched, but a lot of people really liked it, and it's entertaining, I think. But the one that I just keep ranting about this every time I come on the show, which is The Detectorists, probably my favorite show. They came up with their Christmas special this year. So they've got 3 movies, 3 seasons, and now they've got their new Christmas special, and it was terrific. So
would you consider The Detectorists family friendly?
Oh yeah, super family friendly.
Because we have an emailer who asked about sitcoms that aren't about all about sex or all about cursing and something you could just sit down and watch. Maybe The Detectorists is a good.
This is
good one
in
for
the
them.
Ted Lasso.
Oh man,
this is Ted Lasso-esque.
Wholesome AF.
Oh, yeah, super wholesome. But it's about 2 buddies who hang out and search for stuff with their metal detectors and get into very low stakes adventures.
That sounds perfect.
It is the perfect show, and I rant about it every single time I'm on this show. And one day, you guys will watch it.
I have no doubt that is true. Fraser Cain, thank you so much for hanging out with us, man. Before you go, let folks know all the great stuff you've got going on and where they can find it.
Universe Today on all the things. So I'm actually just about to go do my live show right now, and we're doing a news program every week. I'm doing multiple very long interviews with space scientists, Nobel Prize winners, astronauts on my channel. Do my weekly question show, plus all of the content that we do on the Universe Today website. And the best thing to do is just subscribe to my newsletter. It is a magazine of space news that comes into your mailbox every week. I write every word. It's totally free. You should there's no ads in it. You should totally sign up. universetoday.com/newsletter.
Beautiful.
Stop
Thank
missing
you
out
again
on space news.
Yeah, don't miss out, folks. Thanks again, Fraser. Good to see you, man.
All right. Thanks, guys. Good to see you. And we'll see you 24.
Yes.
Oh, that's right, for the eclipse. I was just like, wait, were you going to avoid us until then?
No. I'm trusting you before then. But for sure, we'll see you in 24 for the eclipse.
Sounds good. All right, Brian Brushwood, what have you been watching?
I had a bonkers day on Saturday. I went and saw the new Guy Ritchie movie that is yet again like the pitch seems to be, what if it was James Bond, but he had a weakness? What's his weakness? He likes fine things and spends a lot of money. It was silly and a blast, and I loved it despite everything. There's sort of like a a lot of inside baseball, kind of making fun of all of the principal characters in it. But then in the gap before we watched the Chris Rock special, we just had a couple of hours, and I only found out like 2 days ago that the church that is depicted in Jesus Revolution is the one I grew up in. And the man depicted by Fraser, what's his name? Not Fraser Cain.
Kelsey Grammer?
Kelsey Grammer literally blessed me. And,
in your life?
In my life as
wow.
a child, because it takes place in it's about
So what? Hold on. What is Jesus Revolution? You said that as if we all knew, and I don't know that we all know.
It is a movie that just came out that is about San Francisco ideas and what the so-called Jesus Revolution of people kind of stepping away from traditional church going. It's really the birth of the megachurch, to be honest, and I did original boots on the ground reporting, Tom. I called my mom 10 minutes before we went live, and I said, tell me about the church. And she was describing about how there were overflow tents that we would go into and all that stuff. But it was surreal. But the story itself is not heavy-handed at all. It sort of portrays... this is loaded terminology.
And this is not the Guy Ritchie movie. This is a different movie.
No,
right?
This is the second movie I watched that day before the Chris Rock special. It was a hell of a media day. But it's I don't know. I liked it quite a bit, and I can't untease which parts I liked because it enlightened me about my parents, or because I was born in that area, and apparently we went to that church in my very early formative years.
That's amazing. Yeah,
it's great. It's not heavy-handed. It's sweet. It's there was a back and forth. Here's what I want to say. There was a back and forth where I was into it, and then I would retreat emotionally and think, am I unironically just listening to Christian rock? And then I get back into it, and then and back and forth. It's there's something there. I liked it quite a bit, and almost certainly it's because it's the story of my first 5 years on planet Earth.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, that would be a huge part of it. If somebody did a whole movie about St. Lawrence Church in Greenville, I would be captivated.
Yes. And that's very much what I went through. It was very surreal.
Yeah. And Cliff Singer says that the main guy in Jesus Revolution, who plays, I guess, the preacher, plays Jesus in the series The Chosen, which I talked about on It's a Thing. I don't know if we've talked about it here, but it's kind of an underground TV hit that is being marketed outside of mainstream channels and is huge. So you got a bona fide star in there too.
Well, and they definitely and we'll save it for after talk. Patreon.com/Cordkillers.
What are we saving for after talk?
Me talking about my thoughts about.
He wants to talk more about the movie.
Yeah,
Jesus Revolution.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, the thing I've had my eyes on that I wanted to mention this week is Ginny's Kitchen. This is a show on Amazon Prime Video, and it is a continuation of Yoon's Kitchen. Yoon's Kitchen starred Oscar Award-winning actress Yoon in a reality show where she ran a kitchen in vacation spots. And basically, the shtick is, can these actors actually work and run a successful kitchen and bring their native food to the area, and the people dining start to realize, like, wait a minute, are these folks celebrities where they're from? So this is a continuation of that, just without Yoon, and with several other folks who are famous from Korean dramas, from K-pop, running a snack shop in Mexico. And so if you like food reality shows, you're going to like this. You like K-dramas or K-pop, you're going to love this. And if you just like, kind of that chill, we used to talk about the Terrace House vibe back in the day when Terrace House was on the air, that sort of chill reality vibe where the drama doesn't come from arguing and shouting, but just from unusual situations. Check it out. It's on Amazon Prime Video right now, just into its second episode called Ginny's Kitchen, Jinny. Brian
What
has
should
no
we be on the
response.
lookout
Bryce,
for?
What should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, we got an email from Sean who writes, Tom, Brian, and Bryce, I just binged through HBO's Somebody Somewhere. It's amazing in its realism, and everything about this family dramedy is earned and believable. Our main character, Sam, comes back to her rural hometown after being away for 15 to 20 years, and maybe she begins to find where she belongs. If the dysfunctional family and her prejudice towards her hometown don't get in the way. Each episode seemed to go by in a moment. Tom wouldn't need to check his watch to see how much time is left. I feel that the best stories aren't the ones about huge achievements, but rather where the character seeking out the mundane but seemingly impossible to achieve, and this is that sort of story. It's going to have its second season start in April. The biggest downside is it's only 7 episodes. Sean the Dad. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, season 1 aired just a little over a year ago, and season 2 is going to be back on April 23rd on HBO, so you can watch that on HBO or HBO Max. And those will be a one-a-week sort of thing because it's on the real HBO. If you've got something we should really look out for, email us, please. Cordkillers@gmail.com. This looks fun.
Tom, I have a terrible problem. I went to doghousesystems.com/rogue, and I was able to get a free SSD, was able to support our show, and now I have a computer.
Doesn't sound like a problem.
For the life of me, I don't know what this thing's for. Like, what on earth am I going to use? Who needs a computer nowadays, Tom?
Sure. No. Here's what's going to be for. First and foremost, it's going to be for watching me bring the 4th version of Tom's Top 5 to the internet. That's right.
Wait, is that happening?
Yes.
Yes. I once did Top 5 for CNET, and then I left CNET. I once did Top 5 for Revision 3, and then Revision 3 canceled Top 5. I once did Top 5 for Tech Republic, and then they canceled it. But I will not stop counting things. I learned how to count for a reason, Brian.
And
So
judge
Tom's
things. Don't
Top
forget,
5.
don't undersell yourself. You both count and judge them.
That's right. I rank and count, and that will happen again soon at youtube.com/Daily Tech News Show. The return, the final, who knows? Maybe I'll do a 5th and I'll be able to count down my 5 favorite Tom's Top 5 series. But for now, it's the 4th and it's coming soon. So be sure to get subscribed so you don't miss an episode. youtube.com/Daily Tech News Show is where the triumphant return of Tom's Top 5 will happen.
So, like, would you have to cancel yourself in order to get a 5th iteration?
It might be worth it, right?
I mean,
Like,
Maybe that's your first episode, is you cancel yourself in the first episode, and then you come back with Tom's Top 5, Part 2, Part 5.
The first episode of the new one is counting down the previous. Or I could fire myself, hire a new person to host the Top 5.
Tim's Top 5.
It's got to be a Tom.
And then launch a competing Top 5 to that one.
Tom's better Top 5.
Daily Top 5 news show.
So Tom's Top 5 hosted by Tim.
Okay.
And then Tom's better Top 5.
I hate this Tim guy already.
The real Top 5.
Also, my brother's named Tim. That's not who we're talking about.
That's what I'm talking
Let's
about.
move on to the front lines. See if I know this thing.
Frontlines!
Good news. Sling TV has added the option to get ABC's local channels in Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Philadelphia, and San Francisco. Not as good news. Sling TV's Blue subscription, which will have those channels, just went up $5 a month. Sling subscribers in Fresno, Houston, and Raleigh are also getting both ABC and Fox local channels, but their price did not go up.
Congrats, Fresno. That's a phrase nobody's ever said before.
Quite possible.
Meanwhile, AMC is going to launch its branded popcorn in Walmart locations on March 11th. Academy Awards weekend, the microwave version is expected to be $4.98 for a 6-pack. The ready-to-eat bags at $3.98 each. Congrats. The one thing that was special about popcorn is no longer special.
I mean, it's not going to be as good.
No,
It
it's
can't
going to
be.
be awful. It's going to be popcorn. It's going to be a commodity.
It'll be
gonna be
expensive,
the
too. It won't even be good.
It'll be expensive bagged popcorn that doesn't taste anything like what you get at the theater.
It's like you're going to be ashamed when you're hosting a party and they're all like, did you pay for the premium
you paid
same
for the
popcorn?
AMC stuff?
Did you
$4.98 for
DoorDash and AMC?
Ready to eat bags at $3.98?
That's so.
Movies Anywhere. Most of you know what it is. If you don't, it's a service that lets you buy a movie at one digital store, but access it at other ones. So you could buy the movie on Google, for example, but watch it through Apple. During lockdown, they launched a feature called Screen Pass that would let you share up to 3 movies you own per month with someone else so that person could watch them. So I own Citizen Kane, let's say. Through Movies Anywhere, I could give Brian a movie pass and then he could watch Citizen Kane without having to buy it. Well, that's over. Screen Pass is shutting down on May 1st. Any Screen Pass you send before May 1st can still be used until June 1st. So after May 1st, you won't be able to send any passes. And then you have until June 1st to watch any movies with a pass before the whole thing just is gone altogether.
And Netflix announced that All Quiet on the Western Front has passed 150 million hours viewed. The numbers tripled after it cleaned up at the BAFTA Awards. It's also up for several Academy Awards. Not a bad flick. It's a fine show. A fine show. If what you want to watch is the depths of a meat grinder of human history. If what you want to do is be sad about humans.
If you want to be like, war, why is it so bad? Watch this.
Yeah.
Here's a few other notes. Disney released a trailer for Haunted Mansion, starring Lakeith Stanfield, Rosario Dawson, Jamie Lee Curtis, Jared Leto, Winona Ryder, Owen Wilson, Danny DeVito, Dan Levy, Tiffany Haddish. Haunted Mansion premieres in theaters on July 28th. David Beckham is hosting a soccer documentary on Apple TV Plus called Real Madrid Until the End, about that team's 2021-2022 season. There's another trailer out for season 4 of Succession. Don't forget that one's coming back March 26th. We'll be talking about it on Spoilerin Time. Live action Peter Pan and Wendy, a reimagining of the 1953 cartoon, will premiere on Disney Plus April 28th, featuring Jude Law as Captain Hook. Apple TV has ordered a second season of Prehistoric Planet. Universal and Illumination have decided to release Super Mario Bros. 2 days early. New release date is now Wednesday, April 5th. Pluto TV launched a bunch of new dedicated channels for Rocky movies in advance of Creed coming to theaters. Also added WoW, which is not about Warcraft, but Women of Wrestling, and a Sailor Moon channel that'll feature hundreds of episodes from multiple series within the Sailor Moon franchise. True Detective creator Nick Pizzolatto is developing a Western for Amazon. Amazon Prime Video released a teaser for the 5th and final season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which returns April 14th. And Fox ordered a 3rd season of Dan Harmon's Krapopolis. And you're like, oh man, did I miss the first 2? No. Season 1 has also been delayed. It will not debut until autumn, but there will be 3 seasons of it after it debuts.
Holy moly. Dan Harmon, the stable one. Who saw that coming?
I know, right? Let's get to the dispatches from the front. Tom B's got a good question. He's like, I am a truck driver. I have a Vizio TV in my truck with many video apps, including Netflix, and I sometimes watch things on the Netflix app. And no, the person's like, oh, I hope you don't watch them while you're driving. He doesn't. This device has never been on my home network and may never be. Am I going to have to get a special code every month to watch Netflix? I'm certain I'm not the only truck driver who's going to have this issue, especially since there are plenty of truckers who don't have a physical home.
Bryce, you had a comment on this, right?
Well, yeah. Netflix has offered mobile-only plans for a long time. India, Malaysia's got them. Parts of Africa have got it. And it's been a few years in those cases. So I expect that they are aware that they have a large portion of their user base that is mobile only. My guess would be if you're only accessing it on mobile, you'll probably be fine. If you have maybe like a networking, like a router or a modem or somehow in your rig, that might be enough to be considered a primary location, even if you're moving around and you're connected via a different way.
Yeah.
But I bet you're not going to be left in the dark. There are a lot of people asking this question.
Yeah,
no, I think Netflix is going to have a lot of questions they're going to have to answer, and Bryce is on the right track, which is it's not a home network you have to log into. It's a home internet service. If you're carrying that internet service with you, through a phone, then that will work. That I know enough about how they're doing this to know that like, oh, that phone will be able to say, yep, I'm the same phone. You can use me. And that should be fine. I would think. I could be wrong. But yeah, I'm curious if you're just logging in on Wi-Fi at hotels and you're not using a phone internet service to power the Vizio TV, that could present a problem. I'm not sure how they'll handle that.
Well, and almost certainly these kind of things tend to be a heavy-handed solution, and then they get the backlash, then they fix everything into a more nuanced way. I have to imagine this isn't going to be a problem for very long.
I mean, not sorry to our friends up north, but there's probably a reason they started in Canada before they brought it to the U.S. Sorry.
It's a smaller population. It's not an insult to say that Canada has a smaller population.
There's not enough of you. Sorry.
We got an email from Tim who was distressed that he wasn't sure if I was reading his emails or not. Basically, anybody who writes at cordkillers@gmail.com know that there are two varieties. Either if it's not going to be on the show, I'll respond to you, or I put it in the doc and it does, we intend for it to show up on the show, but sometimes things get cut last minute. So if you receive no response, that's what happened. But he was asking about family-friendly PG sitcoms. I suggested The Good Place, and it sounded like that was something they had tried on before. I strongly encourage you to try it again. It's really, really great. What about you guys? Is there any PG?
Well, this is the one we referenced earlier with Fraser. So The Detectorists would be a good one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean,
you got one, Bryce?
I mean, it's hard to go wrong with Ted Lasso, right? Obviously,
oh my gosh, yeah,
very much a feel-good comedy.
Abbott Elementary is another good one.
Yeah, I mean, classic sitcoms. You could do The Office. You could do a Parks and the Rec. There's so many, and there's a lot of pretty good evergreen sitcoms.
Yeah,
they're not as rooted in. Well, I don't know.
Anything
they will age
by
better.
Michael Schur.
Yeah,
you're gonna do all right.
Joe from Delaware says, anyway, my wife and I have a 2 remote policy in our home, so either of us can pause, rewind, or pick what we are watching. There are a lot of third-party remotes with buttons you might want on the bottom of your remote. If you can't or don't want to reprogram a remote button, these are worth the investment if you use the remote a lot or just want a second remote. So there you go. Nice idea, Joe. I like it.
We have a couple of TCL televisions in the house, and at some point, the upstairs remote ends up downstairs, vice versa, or whatever. I just bought 5 of them on Amazon. Best decision I've ever made. They're just everywhere. Anybody can pick up a remote. And then you can
program those buttons to be whatever you want. Nobody can stop you. He also says, P.S. I'm your boss, applesauce. Thank you, Joe. That is it for us. Once again, thank you, Fraser Cain, for being with us on Cordkillers. Go check out Universe today. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. And we are live on twitch.tv/Night Attack Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll talk to you next time.
Hey, Tom Merritt, what's going on?
I'm just hanging out here watching this scroll go by. What are you doing?
Trying to set up a bit where we thank our beautiful, beautiful patrons, all these wonderful names.
I'm sorry, I'm too distracted looking at these beautiful, beautiful patron names going by. Look at that one. I mean, if you wanted to be one of these people, patreon.com/cordkillers would be the place to go.
I mean, they're scratching our itch, like, because we're addicted.
As long as it's consensual, like,
we're addicted to their money
and love. Might as well face it.
Well, God damn it.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.